A father stares at his power bill. It's doubled. He scrolls through the news. Headlines about stocks, crypto, elections. Not one mentions silver. Not once. This week, the metal quietly sitting in your phone and rooftop solar panels could become the fuse that blows up the financial story you've been told your whole life. If you've ever felt like you're working harder, earning the same, and somehow falling behind, this story about silver is really a story about you. Welcome to Finance Evidence, the place where feelings of something's off get matched with hard data. Watch this to the end, then decide if this really is the week the silver market breaks. Most people will blame their boss, the government, or inflation. Almost nobody will blame a tiny gray metal they never see. Picture this. You're at the grocery store. The same cart that cost you $80 last year now rings up at $115. You're not buying anything different. Same brands, same quantities, but somehow you're poorer. Across town, your neighbor's solar installation has been delayed 3 months. No explanation, just supply chain issues. Meanwhile, your phone upgrade, the one you were planning for, suddenly feels like a luxury you can't justify. Silver used to be something your grandparents kept in a drawer. Tarnished spoons, maybe a commemorative coin. Now it lives in satellites orbiting overhead. In the electric vehicles politicians promise will save the planet. In hospital machines keeping people alive. Cut to a nurse's face. Tired eyes. Her hospital can't get certain equipment on time. Procedures delayed. Patients waiting. All because of a metal most people associate with jewelry, not life and death. You're not crazy for feeling like the numbers don't add up. The system really is changing under your feet. The gap between what you earn and what you can afford, that's not just in your head. It's measurable. It's real. And it's accelerating. But the most important changes are happening in places you will never visit. Underground vaults in London and Zurich. Trading floors where men in expensive suits make bets worth more than your house. Backroom meetings where the word strategic gets whispered like a prayer. To understand how this week could break the silver market, you need to see a game most investors never get invited to. Imagine a crowded nightclub. At the bar, there are maybe 20 real drinks. Actual liquid in actual glasses. But out on the floor, in the dark, there are thousands of drink tickets being traded. People buying tickets, selling tickets, promising tickets. Everyone acts like those tickets are as good as the real thing. Until someone actually wants a drink. Now apply that to silver. There's physical metal, bars sitting in vaults, coins you can hold. Then there are paper claims, ETFs, futures contracts, certificates that say you own silver somewhere. Maybe. Probably. Picture 3 different apps on your phone. Each one promises you the same ounce of silver. You paid for it. It shows up in your account. Looks official. But you don't find out who really gets that ounce until the fire alarm goes off and everyone rushes for the exit at once. Cut to a young trader at a screen, grinning. He's leveraged 50 to 1, controlling metal he could never afford to actually buy. Across the split screen, an older retiree on his porch. He thinks he owns some silver somewhere. A fund, maybe. Or was it a certificate? He can't quite explain how it works. Just knows his financial advisor said it was a good hedge. This isn't about being smart or dumb. It's about a system that quietly stacks the deck against people who actually have something to lose. The trader with nothing can afford to gamble. The retiree who saved for 30 years? He's the one holding the bag when the music stops. The leverage ratios are insane. For every real ounce of silver that exists, there might be 100 paper claims. 100 promises. And the system works fine, as long as nobody asks for delivery. As long as everyone agrees to keep trading tickets instead of demanding the actual drink. But what happens when that gentleman's agreement breaks down? And the deck gets even more tilted once you add geography and politics. Markets only look calm as long as metal can move where it's needed. What happens when that simple step turns into a battlefield? A cargo ship sits in port. The crew is ready. The metal is loaded. But the paperwork isn't clearing. A customs officer in an office you'll never see is making calls, checking lists, asking questions nobody asked last month. On another line, an insurance company representative. Are you sure you want to send this cargo now? Given the current situation? What situation? They won't say exactly. Just that the premiums have tripled. Think of 2 towns. One is drowning in water. The other is in drought. There's a road between them, a simple solution. But that road has a toll. And every week, the toll gets higher. Then armed guards appear. Then the road gets blocked entirely for security reasons. That's the global silver market right now. A factory manager stands on a silent production line in South Korea. The machines are fine. The workers are ready. But the silver paste needed for solar panel production hasn't arrived. Every minute of delay costs wages, costs bonuses, maybe costs jobs. He's not thinking about spreads and arbitrage. He's thinking about the families depending on this plant, the town that exists because this factory exists. When you hear financial terms like spreads and arbitrage, what you're really hearing is whether that factory pays its people this month or sends them home with apologies and empty promises. The spread between London and Shanghai silver prices has blown out to levels that shouldn't exist. In a normal market, traders would immediately buy cheap in one place, sell expensive in another, and the gap would close. That's arbitrage. Economics 101. But the gap isn't closing. It's widening. Why? Because moving physical metal across borders has become complicated, expensive, risky. The shipping costs have exploded. The insurance costs have exploded. The political risk, the chance that your cargo gets seized or blocked or inspected indefinitely, that's real now in ways it wasn't 2 years ago. You've got silver piling up in London vaults while factories in Asia are desperate for supply. The metal exists. The demand exists. But the connection between them is breaking. That's why when the numbers break, they don't just break on a chart. They break in living rooms. They break in factory towns. They break in families trying to figure out why the world suddenly costs more and makes less sense. Silver has had 100 fake to the moon moments. Reddit rallies. Conspiracy theories. Guys on YouTube drawing lines on charts, promising this time is different. So why are people who never panic quietly leaning forward right now? A precious metals dealer in Texas. Normally, this guy jokes around, tells stories, makes the sale feel easy. But lately, he stopped making jokes. When customers call asking about silver eagles, he just says, "I'll call you if we get any." Click. That's not a sales strategy. That's someone who doesn't know when the next shipment arrives, or if it arrives at all. Cut to a small solar installation company. The owner is on the phone with a customer. The panels are coming. We just don't know when. The customer is frustrated. They were promised a date. They took time off work for the installation. "I understand," the installer says. "We're waiting too." It's not us. It's the supply chain. Everyone says supply chain, now like it explains everything. Like it's an act of God. But supply chains are just people making decisions. And those decisions are changing. Watch the officials on financial news networks. Smooth voices. Expensive ties. They say things like temporary dislocation and normal market volatility. Their words are calm. But watch their faces. The micro expressions. The pause before they answer. The way they glance off camera when asked about physical delivery. You can feel it in the pauses. In the half-finished sentences. People close to the metal, dealers, refiners, industrial buyers, they know something isn't right. There's a term in markets, the dog that didn't bark. Sometimes the most important signal is what's not being said. And right now, there's a deafening silence from the people who usually can't shut up about available inventory. Major refineries aren't publishing wait times anymore. They used to advertise 4-week delivery. Now, contact us for current availability. Mints are rationing. You used to be able to order 1,000 silver eagles, no problem. Now there are purchase limits. Not because they don't want your money, because they physically don't have the product. And that gap between what's said on TV and what's whispered on trading desks is where black swans are born. The thing about black swans is that they're never really black swans. Not to the people paying attention. The warning signs are always there. The system just trains us to ignore them until it's too late. If the silver market really breaks, it won't feel like one big explosion. It will feel like 1,000 small malfunctions. You decide to buy some silver coins. Just a small hedge. You go online to the usual dealers. The first site, out of stock. Okay, try another. Out of stock. Third site has some, but the premium over spot price has doubled. And shipping? 3 to 4 weeks. It used to be 3 to 4 days. You place the order anyway. For weeks pass. You get an email, due to unforeseen delays. Now it's 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe. Meanwhile, a small tech repair shop across town is turning away customers. A guy brings in his laptop. The screen's cracked, but everything else works fine. The shop owner shakes his head. "I can't get the parts. Not at a price that makes sense. By the time I factor in what the replacement screen costs now, you're better off buying a used laptop. But this one works fine. It's just the screen." "I know. I'm sorry. Multiply that conversation by 1,000. by 10,000. Little inefficiencies, little failures, things that used to be simple becoming impossible. Cut to a neighborhood association meeting. People are angry. They were promised that rooftop solar would save them money. Going green and saving green, the salesman said. But the installations keep getting delayed. Costs keep rising. The savings they were promised? Evaporating. Why didn't anyone tell us? Someone asks. Tell them what? That the entire green energy transition depends on a metal most of them have never thought about? That the promises were made assuming supply would stay cheap and abundant forever? At first you just feel cheated. You did the right thing. You believe the experts. You made the responsible choice. Then you realize you're not sure who cheated you. Was it the installer who promised a date they couldn't keep? The manufacturer who couldn't deliver panels? The politicians who pushed policies without understanding the supply side? The financial system that let paper claims multiply beyond any connection to physical reality? And that's when trust starts to crack. Trust is the invisible foundation of every market. You trust that the dollar in your pocket will buy roughly what it bought yesterday. You trust that when you deposit money in a bank, you can withdraw it later. You trust that when you buy a share of silver, there's actually silver backing it somewhere. But trust isn't a fact. It's a feeling. And feelings change faster than systems can adapt. When trust cracks, price stops being just a number on a screen. It becomes a verdict on the whole system. Every tick higher is another person saying, I don't believe you anymore. In a world where silver charges toward $100 an ounce, someone always pays the bill. The only question is, who? A miner in a small Nevada town finally pays off debts his family has carried for 2 generations. The mine that was barely breaking even at $25 silver? At $80, it's printing money. Jobs are secure. Bonuses are real. Hope returns. But cut to a hospital in Ohio. A nurse stands in front of equipment that's been backordered for 4 months. The silver-based antimicrobial coating on certain medical devices? Too expensive now. So they use alternatives. They work fine. Mostly. But not quite as well. It's not dramatic. Nobody dies from one substitution. But margins of safety shrink. Percentages shift. And in medicine, percentages are people. Or a young family trying to install solar panels to offset their electricity costs. They signed the contract when silver was $30. Now it's $70. The installer calls. We need to renegotiate the price, or we can't move forward. But we have a contract. I know. And I'm sorry. But we're losing money on every installation at the old price. I can honor the contract and go bankrupt, or we can find a new number that works. Zoom out to the national level. Countries that locked in long-term silver supply contracts 5 years ago are quietly smiling. Countries that assumed the market would stay liquid and accessible forever? They're scrambling. Diplomats smile for cameras at international summits. They talk about cooperation and shared prosperity. But in back rooms, negotiators whisper about metal, about reserves, about who's willing to trade what for guaranteed supply. It's not a formal war. It's worse. It's a cold scramble where everyone pretends to be friendly while desperately securing whatever advantage they can. A country with major silver deposits suddenly becomes a lot more important. Suddenly, their votes at international organizations matter more. Their opinions on trade deals carry weight they didn't have before. Now zoom back in. All the way down to one family at a kitchen table. Parents looking at bills. The electricity cost has jumped again. The solar installation they planned, delayed indefinitely, and now more expensive. The vacation they promised the kids? Canceled. We'll make it up next year, they say, but they don't believe it. And the kids can hear that doubt in their voices. This is what a market break feels like at ground level. Not exciting, not dramatic, just a slow, grinding realization that the future costs more than you thought, and you're not sure how to bridge the gap. But here's the thing people forget. Humans are incredibly adaptive. People don't just freeze in crises. They adapt. They find substitutes. They share tips with neighbors. They build little pockets of safety the system never planned for. A community garden becomes a way to cut food costs. A neighbor with tools starts a side business doing repairs the shops won't take anymore. Families double up in houses to split rent. Not because they want to, because they have to. And information flows differently. Your uncle who bought gold coins 10 years ago and everyone thought was paranoid? Suddenly people are asking him questions. The coworker who's been talking about supply chain fragility? People listen now. Trust fragments. But it doesn't disappear. It just relocates. From institutions to individuals. From official channels to personal networks. From the system to the tribe. The silver story ends in numbers, price targets, inventory levels, trading volumes. But it's written by people deciding, quietly, how much they're willing to trust, who they're willing to trust, and what they're willing to do when that trust runs out. A black swan in silver isn't just about charts going vertical. It's about millions of people suddenly realizing the rules were never what they thought. For decades, the story was simple. Markets are efficient. Prices reflect reality. If you need something, you can buy it. If you own something, you can sell it. Supply and demand find balance. But when essential materials become weapons in financial and political games, ordinary families end up playing a match they never signed up for. You didn't choose to care about silver. You probably still don't care about silver as a metal, but you care about your electricity bill, your phone, your ability to plan 6 months ahead without feeling like you're guessing. And all of those things, whether you know it or not, are tied to a market that's showing cracks. You can't control how many promises the system makes. You can't control how many paper claims get created for every real ounce. You can't control whether a ship clears customs in Singapore or sits in port for 3 weeks. But you can control how many of those promises your future depends on. The real question isn't, will silver hit $100? Markets do what markets do. Predictions are just expensive guesses. The real question is, who will you be if it does? Will you be the person caught off guard, wondering why everything suddenly costs more and works less? Angry at a system you don't understand, blaming forces you can't name? Or will you be the one who saw the pattern in time? Who understood that when enough people lose faith in paper promises, they reach for things they can hold? Who built some resilience before it became desperately necessary? Not because you're smarter, not because you're paranoid, just because you paid attention to the gap between what people say and what they do, between official reassurance and quiet concern. If your country woke up tomorrow to a full-blown silver shock, rolling blackouts, delayed tech, markets freezing, would you trust the system to ride it out? Or quietly start building your own backup plan? Tell finance evidence in the comments. Stay and trust, or prepare and hedge.